was introduced to toxic leadership. It made me sick. We are probably at one of the worst points in life with disengagement, workplace well-being. It's at an all-time low.
Would you consider people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, conscious leaders?
I'm not a fan. I honor their vision, and it's very exciting. I care more about the people who work for these organizations. My vision, where leaders are really thinking about the people first, giving them the tools that they need to be well, to be happy. I was so exhausted that I fell asleep at the wheel and crashed. And that was another moment where I said, I am far off. I am so far off my purpose. There's a spiritual disconnect. I have to say that a conscious person probably could not work for Elon Musk. We don't lead in a silo. We need leaders to step up more consciously and understand that they're either helping people or hurting them.
Hello, Monique. Thank you for coming on the show. Really excited for our conversation. Why don't you give the listeners a quick intro of who you are and what you're up to in the world?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, you go ahead.
Are we starting now?
Yeah, we're starting now. Yeah, anytime you want. Yeah.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Monique Renee. And, I'd like to say that I'm a culmination today in my life of all of my passions, all of my curiosities, and making fierce decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say that now because I didn't always follow the road that everybody follows, right? From the outside looking in, I did, but there was always like an inner calling pulling me to do you, right? There's something that you're not doing that you need to do. Mm-hmm. And so, long story short, I have a long career in public relations, in higher education, which evolved into me becoming a conscious leadership expert and professor, for lack of a better word. And today I work with a lot of organizations who really want to, lead better. And impact their employees more positively, increase well-being and engagement in their organizations. I also teach leadership for Florida International University Center for Leadership and the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. So I have a passion for conscious leadership because I was introduced to toxic leadership in my life at a very young age, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put a language to it, but it made me sick. And when I wasn't around it, I got better. And so that was something that drove me in my life until I was able to lean into it in a bigger way. The other big theme in my life is spirituality. I'm a mystic since I was a child. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to find photos of myself, like reading a book at the age of 10. And it's a spiritual book. And I'm like, did I really do that? I did. And so throughout life, I've been leaning into my various spiritual interests and tools that today I use in combination with conscious leadership to support individuals, high achieving individuals who want to achieve success, but want to make an impact in the right way without burning out any longer, without getting sick any longer, without losing important, meaningful relationships in their lives. And so really coming into a place of personal responsibility and creating more flow. I call it flow. For me, my business is called Fiercely Flowing. So it's a combination of making those tough decisions so that you can live your life with purpose, with authenticity, with clarity, with passion. And through that, knowing that you're going to end up where you need to end up and make that impact without suffering.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Could you, for the listeners to have a better, clear understanding, what does conscious leadership even mean?
Yeah, I think there are so many leadership programs out there. Yeah. They all teach you how to effectively manage people, how to run an organization, how to have vision and pull people in. And all of those are important parts of leadership. The conscious part for me begins with recognizing that we don't lead in a silo. We don't lead because I'm the leader and people need to follow. It's recognizing the gift that everyone in that organization has and bringing it to life. Leadership is about setting the direction for others and igniting them so that they can lead with you. And so I talk about energy. I have leaders understand how their energy is working for them or against them, what it looks like to lead from consciousness or awareness versus leading reactively, right? And what happens when we do that? People leave us. People won't follow us. People get sick and disengaged. We are probably at one of the worst points in life with disengagement, workplace well-being. It's at an all-time low, and we have to do something about it. So we need leaders to step up more consciously and understand that they're either helping people or hurting them.
Yeah. And is there a way to, so let's say a leader who is maybe not practicing doesn't have like their own wellness practice or a self-reflecting practice or something like that, to make them, to convert them into a conscious leader? Or does that start from like a personal journey first?
It's always a personal journey.
Yeah.
So we start with the leader first, right? And I think it's helping them through questioning, to understand what's not working well in their life. And I can almost guarantee that if there's a leader who's not operating consciously, there's a lot that's not working well in their life. Their health may be suffering. They may be lacking purpose, right? With all of these high disengagement numbers, we think that leaders are not disengaged, but they are. Many CEOs are disengaged. Executives in businesses, whether small or large, are disengaged. And so we want to hone in on their life. Are they clear about who they are, what's important to them, what's meaningful to them? Are they prioritizing those things? Are they being a role model to others in the company? For example, if there is a leader who's, overweight, having a hard time breathing, has hypertension, is working, 12 hours a day, what message are you sending to everyone else in your organization, right? And so we do start with the leader and just help to uncover how they can take more personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And start to become aware of their energy, of their thoughts, and through small shifts, just take action in helping themselves first.
Yeah. Then would you say the long-term conscious leader has to have a healthy vessel? Like they have to look healthy? Because if they don't, then there's something misaligned there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that our bodies and how we feel is a constant mirror for us in our life. I do this constantly. I'm like, what's not feeling right? Something's not feeling well. Something has shifted in my body, and I get quiet and I begin my reflection process of what have I shifted? I'm not walking as much anymore. I'm not sleeping well. I am focusing too much on, said project. What's behind it? Is there fear there? So it's through that self-reflection. But yes, our bodies are here to support us, right? We spoke about this earlier that, we're spiritual beings in physical bodies, and we come to be human, but we're still spiritual. And so when we're not taking care of ourselves, there is a disconnect. There's a spiritual disconnect when we're not prioritizing our well-being.
Would you consider people like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk as conscious leaders?
I'm not a fan. Jeff Bezos takes care of himself physically. You could say, looking at him over the years, that he's taking care of his physical body. Are they making conscious decisions that support others? I don't believe so. And just knowing what I know about how they operate their businesses and listening to interviews from their employees. Just recently, watching Elon Musk, in the media, I know through stories, what it feels like to work for Elon Musk. I have to say that a conscious person probably could not work for Elon Musk, unless to a certain extent, their purpose in this lifetime, right? Which we can discover, we can uncover that. There are people whose purpose is to, work on a technology that needs to be created in our lifetime, right? And so, that's their journey, right? That's their journey. My journey, I would say my number one goal is freedom, right? And I've built that in my life through becoming an entrepreneur and starting my own business. I wanted that freedom to be able to prioritize my life, take care of myself the way I wanted to, be there for my children whenever they needed me. So freedom is my number one value. My second value is wellness and well-being. So I know that I could never work for an Elon Musk and maybe for a Jeff Bezos at a high level, because my values they just don't coincide with their values. So I don't know them personally, but I would say that they have some work to do when it comes to consciousness and awareness and leading in a way that serves humanity.
Do you think people like them and other prominent leaders are driven by ego, or are they driven by vision?
I think both. They're highly visionary. Not everybody can come to this lifetime and, be in a position like they are in. So I do think they have vision. And listen, Amazon has changed my life. I'm not here to, I cannot live without Amazon. I don't own a Tesla. Maybe I will one day. But I appreciate their vision. I believe in technology. I believe in forward thinking. I don't believe in moving backwards. I believe in moving forward. So yes, I honor their vision, and it's very exciting. But I honor more and I care more about the people who work for these organizations, how it impacts them and how it impacts their families, and the future generations, right? And what are we really teaching, our children, in the way that we're asked to work, in like the individuals are in these organizations. So I think it's a combination. I do think we have to have a healthy ego to be in those positions, but you can only have a healthy ego through consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? We have to be aware of where our ego is and why I'm fighting for something, why I'm pushing against something, versus unconsciously reacting from my ego. Two different things.
Yeah, because oftentimes people say, oh, ego is kind of like bad, don't, anything related to ego is not good. And I don't think that's accurate.
It's a balance.
Yeah, I think you need the ego to navigate this 3D world. It's very much a useful tool. Without the ego, you just become completely wacky and not,
You do.
Yeah.
I always say to my clients, because my clients kind of have gotten to know me as a person who makes spiritual wisdom practical. I'm very woo-woo, very woo-woo. Like that's how people who know me really well would define me. If I could be meditating all day in the forest, I would do it.
Yeah.
But I want to make people's lives easier and better and more in flow and peaceful and graceful and, all of those beautiful words, happier. But if we're meditating all day long, what are we doing? We're not out there in the world actually, living life, building relationships, having beautiful experiences. And that is the human experience, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, we were granted this physical body for a reason. Yes, there is, you could believe that there's life after death and before death, but you're here now. Like you're here to experience this fully, Yeah. Walk me through your process, how you work with leaders. What do you teach them? What's your methodology?
I have what I call the 4 C's.
Okay.
So I always start with clarity. A lot of the leaders that end up working with me long term, they're here. They have such passion. There's a deep, deep purpose there. but they're clouded.
Mm.
And so the clarity part is helping them to understand who they are, putting the mirror back up to them. I do that in many ways. I have many tools, and, intuitively I feel into which tool is best for them. But, traditional astrology, I'm an astrologer. I'm also a feng shui practitioner. And because of that, I also practice 9-star key astrology, which is feng shui astrology. I practice human design. So, these are my spiritual technologies. I call them spiritual technologies, but they can help remind us of our gifts, of our talents, of our purpose, of our destiny, what we're here to do. And I find that sometimes giving them that clarity and, helps them go, oh my God, you see me. I mean, this is what I've been feeling, but this voice inside me, this ego voice has been telling me that I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right. So through clarity, I remind them of who they are. They remind themselves of who they are. Their passion ignites. Through clarity, we also uncover those thoughts, those limiting beliefs that are holding them back, and how they are holding themselves back, right? Because that's where personal responsibility comes in. I'm not going to blame the world for where I am or who I am. I need to recognize that what is it within me and my patterns and my beliefs that I'm holding myself back. So we've got clarity. Then we have connection. Okay. Actually, let me start next with clearing. I believe in bringing in tools and practices that help us clear our energy, right? So beginning to clear those thoughts, choose new thoughts. Clearing our spaces, our energetic body, but also our spaces, because they hold our toxic energy, our stuck energy. And being that I am a feng shui practitioner, I believe that our home is a mirror to our life and vice versa. And so by shifting the energy in our spaces, we shift the energy in our life and vice versa. So I work with them to bring in some clearing techniques, whether it's through meditation or through Reiki or feng shui. Then connection. I want them to begin to connect with themselves on a regular basis and to connect with spirit in a way that's authentic to them, right? Spirit means something different for everybody. I was born and raised a Catholic, but from a very young age, it just didn't make sense to me. Some of the things that they would say to us. And so I leaned away from Catholicism and just, for me, spirituality is my relationship with spirit, with God, and with the fact that I am a piece of God, right? I come from God. And so what is my relationship with spirit? Do I trust spirit? Do I feel like I'm alone in the world? Because if I feel like I'm alone in the world, then I'm going to be a victim of the world, right? So it's reconnecting with spirit in a way that they can have more trust and surrender and flow and not feel like they have to do it all in this life, right? So it's less doing, more being. So building in that practice. And then finally, consistency. Consistency of working on our thoughts, consistency of taking care of ourselves, consistency of connection, and then also creation. Getting them to a place where they can start to create themselves as new in this physicality and create the life that they really want and deserve. So that's kind of my methodology.
Great. Yeah. And would you be able to do like a taste, like what, imagine I'm the leader that you're working with, just on the first part, on the clarity. Do you mind we do like a mini like exercise like that? And
absolutely. So I think what would be fun is kind of what we started talking about on the couch.
Yeah.
Because one of my fun tools, I don't use it with everybody, it has to resonate with them, but it's using the tool of Chinese face reading, right? So when I meet a person, I connect with them in many ways. I'll ask them for their birth date, and I will lean into that on my own and begin to understand who they are from that astrological perspective. Through Chinese face reading, everything on your face represents an energy, also a timeline. and a body part. I mean, it's so rich. Its foundation is in Chinese medicine, right? And so we work with the 5 elements, which is water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And so we have all of these elements inside of us through our astrology, but also through our face. And so this is energy that makes up the different archetypes of who we are, right? And those archetypes become our personality. They become our purpose, our inner soul's calling, right?
Yep.
And so when I look at your face, I can already begin to kind of, paint a picture of who you are, right? So I would ask you, like, you must be a highly creative person, a person who loves to think, a person who loves to learn, who is super curious. You're probably in your mind like all the time, sifting through a million ideas, right? Would you say that that's
totally
true of you?
And then what part of my face reveals that?
Yeah, your forehead primarily. So a person with a distinct forehead, like that's the first thing I see when I look at you, right? This beautiful, big forehead. And that tells me that, the mind is the most active part of your physicality. Like you are here to think. You are here to communicate, right? Because that represents the element of water, but also air. You're highly emotional. Are you an emotional person?
Yeah, I would say I am sensitive to emotions. I am not as expressive in terms of emotions. Yeah.
Right. And one of the reasons you're not as expressive to emotions is because you have a lot of wood represented in your face, right? And so wood energy is kind of like ego energy. It's like, I don't always want to show who I am because I need to just get things done, right? So there is an aspect of you that likes to get things done, likes to achieve, right? But you are here to use your emotions, right? We also see this under your eyes. You have a lot of the element of water, which is deeply creative, deeply spiritual, right? So I think I told you when I was sitting with you on the couch that you're probably someone who gets messages, right? Whether you're psychic or you have mediumship skills or you just get downloads a lot. Is that something that you've been experiencing?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So also your nose, and it's not as prominent from the front as it is from the side.
Yeah.
Right. But your nose is a unique feature of your face. And what that tells me is that you're someone who likes quality things in life. Okay. You like things to be beautiful, to be done well, to have an artistic flair to them, right? And so in many ways, Kiro, what I'm doing is sharing with you just from that one tool that, and also leadership, by the way, leadership. So in many ways, I would say you're here to be a leader. You're here to be super creative, to use your mind, to communicate with the world, to harness your emotions. Okay. And also to get things done, right? So we have this archetype of someone who's able to get things done and be successful and be a leader, but uses his emotions and his creativity as his superpowers.
Yeah.
Right? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay. So that's one way that I like to get into the clarity of who a person is. Because if this person is off track, and let's say maybe you're in a finance job, but all you do is you're thinking about all of these wonderful projects that you'd love to create. And you're a little bit not energized with your finance work. You're not able to use your emotions or creativity in finance, right? And so we would have a conversation around, well, are you in the right position? And why haven't you started to shift? What can we do to start getting you to cultivate these natural gifts that you're here to use? And then we start to see the joy and the person light up. And so we can start that way. I go deeper with the astrology. I go deeper with the human design. That's what makes me unique as a coach, is some of the tools that I use. But also I would just start to ask you, like, what do you believe to be true about yourself and your life?
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
What do I believe about myself?
Yeah.
Just in general?
What do you believe about who you are right now and what's true about who you are?
Yeah, I am someone who is here to bring deeper human connection, to bring more understanding, to bring positive vision of the future, and figure out how to get there, act on the vision.
Yeah.
Something
Beautiful.
like that. Yeah.
And I know that you're doing that, right? So you're in a highly conscious place where you're naturally recognizing your talents, your passion, and taking action on them, right? I would also probably dive into, why did you contact me? What's happening in your life that is not working well and is not feeling good? Right. And we would go in that direction to start uncovering, where is it that where's the pain? And where can we align who you are and who you're meant to be to help that pain go away and to shift it.
Would you say mainly people who are open to spirituality would work with you, or do you also work with those who have never really thought about it, never experienced it?
Yeah. One of my gifts is teaching. I'm also a learner. I learn. Learner is my number one strengths finder talent. I'm also a Gemini rising. We talked about that. I'm curious. I'm here to learn. I'm here to communicate. I know that one of my biggest purposes in this life is to communicate and to share. So I love teaching. I love teaching leaders how to be effective leaders. And if that's all I do with them, I'm super thrilled. And if I've opened their eye to just one way that they can shift to be a better leader and to create leaders within their organization and to create well-being in their organizations, then I've done my job. But yes, the majority of people and leaders and entrepreneurs and creators who work with me, they're mystics in their own right. They want to learn more and dive deeper into their spirituality. They want to understand themselves through the lens of spirituality. And mostly they want to connect more. And they do want to get to a place where they are not rowing against life, but flowing with life. And that's what I want to do to help them. I want them to get to a place where they flow. Yeah.
So speaking of purpose, what's your definition, and how does one find purpose?
One finds purpose by listening to the whispers of their soul. Paying attention to what lights them up, right? Like, what do you yearn to do? I often tell my students, my scholars that I work with, or my clients, like, what lights you up? Like, what would you do all day and not get paid to do it? That is a big clue, right? And there's probably many things. It's not just one thing, okay? For me, it was dancing all my life. Like, I was a dancer. I wanted to be a professional dancer, but I had other interests too. I love to communicate. I love to express myself. So, who were you as a child? Go back and talk to me about what energized you as a child. What were your talents as a child? What did you get lost doing? Right? Those types of questions help us to understand. But today, as adults, as entrepreneurs, leaders, what do you yearn to do? What do you know that you do really well over and over again? You can do it with your eyes closed, okay, and be excellent. What do people congratulate you for and recognize you for because they're astounded by your talents, right? What satisfies you? What fulfills you? Those are all clues that you're operating within a purpose. Yeah. Do I believe we only have one purpose? No. I believe that there's kind of an umbrella purpose. Like, my umbrella purpose is to help people connect with who they are. And live a deeply joyful, life. But I do it in many different ways, and those different ways are different purposes that I've opened myself up to because I'm paying attention to what lights me up, right? And sometimes we can discover it by listening to someone speak and they say something and then your gut tells you, pay attention. go buy that book, go read that book, because there's something in there that's going to guide you to a bigger purpose.
Yeah. So I like you said, yeah, it's more of like an umbrella. It's not something precise. Yeah. I also see it the same way, where it's more like a general force that's moving, but then once that force is hitting 3D reality, that's when the definition happens in every moment. So it's as it passes through time, the reality changes, and that's where the boundaries of the purpose might be defined
they shift,
more precisely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's important that we do that, because, I shared with you earlier, if I could spend the majority of my time just doing spiritual work, that's where most of my flow is. And I help others through that. But I also know that when I get in front of a classroom and teach, or I get on stage and I share my message, I am so lit up. So why would I box myself? Why would I tell myself only do this when so many other things light me up, and I'm still impacting others and, helping to awaken others?
Yeah. What also resonates and feels true to me is this idea that the more experiences and knowledge and perspectives that we bring from our past, from the whole life, into the culmination of what we're doing now, the closer we are to what we're meant to be doing, because we're basically the only person who has all of those experiences that you're incorporating, and you're like the best person in the entire world to do that specific thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to follow where life is guiding us, and we kind of know that we're off track when we're overwhelmed, we're stressed, we're getting sick. I'll give you a couple examples, stories from my life that were very poignant. It was my first job out of college. I was 22 years old, maybe. And I was working for what I call now a toxic leader, a person who is screaming all day long, slamming doors, slamming phones. I was shocked. I was like, how is it possible that a person like this is running an organization, right? I was there for a year. I just kind of honed in and just did my work. Left that organization, went to another organization that was more aligned with my passion, what I wanted to do. Encountered another toxic, manipulative leader who was a liar as well. And here I am, again, at this time, probably 23 years old, saying, is it me? Am I making this up? Or is this really happening? But what started happening here is that I started getting sick. I developed a severe allergy all over my body, inside of my body and all over my body. I had it for well over a year. You would just touch me and I would break out into rashes. And when I was stressed, it would be even more. I had to take a whole bunch of different drugs just to not feel the itchiness of it, because I wouldn't be able to get through the day. I couldn't sleep at night. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, well, I'm allergic to something, right? So this second job got so bad and so toxic that the day that I left and went to a different job, the very next day, it all disappeared. It went away. And this was the moment of my awakening, my first awakening, where I was in full consciousness. And I said, wow, these people made me sick, right? But I didn't blame them. What I did was, how could I not see it? And how could I not take personal responsibility to avoid it, to prevent it? And that's when I started getting curious about energy and about personal responsibility and what is my part in this. Yeah. And I started to work with that. That was one, instance where I knew, because I was sick and stressed and overwhelmed, that I was not operating in my purpose, or I was not in the right environment or with the right individuals to help me be in a place where I could live my purpose and use my gifts. Later on, after leaving that job and going into two others, I landed in a university, Florida International University, where I stayed for 17 years. Probably, the best experience, of a career in my life. I work for one of the best leaders, right? The complete opposite. And that's where I really started to gain a passion for leadership and what conscious leadership is, what effective and servant leadership looks like.
Great.
And that led me, to become a leadership trainer and expert. But along the way, I kind of lost my purpose. I didn't feel like it was fulfilling me any longer. I didn't feel like I was contributing or impacting in the way that I wanted. And I started to make bad decisions, right? I did a side hustle, thinking that the side hustle was going to fill my bucket, right? And what that led to was just more exhaustion because I was working around the clock, 2 jobs, trying to put on this mask, at work that I was happy when I really wasn't. I wasn't spending enough time with my family or my children, which was killing me inside because they are my number one purpose. And long story short, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep at the wheel and crashed. And that was another moment where I said, I am far off. I am so far off my purpose. I am so far off of my point of well-being and consciousness that it's time to rake it in. So I share those stories because none of us are perfect. We're going to go through these cycles in life where we have to learn lessons. Those lessons are meant to put us back on our purpose, on a path toward our destiny, toward our highest and best vision of our life and of our purpose. But we need to pay attention, right? And then secondly, hopefully through working with people like me and other, conscious, coaches out there, you will have fewer and fewer of those wake-up calls. That's the point, that we live consciously moment to moment.
Yeah.
And do our best to recognize in the moment what shifts we have to make so that we don't have those dangerous wake-up calls.
What is the purpose and the meaning of a teacher in the learning process? Does the teacher, is the evolution of someone can only happen by having a teacher that can teach them skills and be a mirror and how important that is?
I think it's extremely important.
Yeah.
I look back at my whole journey and I would say that almost every one of those moments of awakening, of awe, of tapping into exuberant joy and purpose came through a teacher of some sort, right? So it could have been a book. Like the first spiritual book I think I read was, and I think there was one that was earlier, but let me say that my first few teachers were Marianne Williamson and Wayne Dyer. I did meet them in person. I didn't learn from them in person, but their book, they were teachers for me through their books. And then later on, at conferences and things of that nature. So we have teachers through books. We have teachers, actual teachers in classrooms, right? That awaken us. Bosses. I had bad teachers and I had good teachers, in bosses that taught me a lot, that really helped me awaken to my purpose. I think all of our close relationships are teachers. In human design, when we look at our human design map, we have channels that are active, but they don't complete, right? There's an energy that starts, but it doesn't complete the full channel. Okay. The people that are meant to be teachers in our lives in some way, shape, or form are people who have that other channel that kind of energetically complete ours, right? So we see it energetically, but in real life, we just experience it through, I met this person, at a coffee shop, and we had this conversation that just blew my mind. And then that led to something, right? So I do feel that when we're open and we're paying attention to how spirit is guiding us, whether it's through a book, through, hey, go to this coffee shop, hey, turn right here instead of left, or a job that we end up at, that those are all teaching moments for us along the way.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I also recognize that there's two kind of distinct teacher type. There's one that's more of like internal teacher that's very subtly nudging you and sending you signals, and then you resonate with them. And there are also teachers that show up and try to tell you something, even though you can always say it's all one big teacher, or that's the whole experience. But I think sometimes you can fall into like over reliance on others teaching you something, and you giving the power away to say, oh, you know something and I don't, and I can't figure that out, so I have to have you in my life to progress. And right.
Completely. Oh, you're so right. I think that's false spirituality. I think part of the spiritual journey is recognizing that we have a higher voice, we have a higher, a higher self. And the more that we connect with ourselves, whether it's through meditation. I have a daily meditation practice. And I go deeper and deeper, as much as I can with that to attune to myself, but also to attune to the spiritual teachers that are connecting with me, to listen. But I feel, because we're in the 3D world, that it's important that we become our own spiritual teachers and really learn how to trust ourselves and our own voices, and not just wait for a sign, for a miracle to move forward. I think this funny joke of, there's a hurricane and there's a flood, and the person's on top of the house and keeps asking God, send me help, save me. And then a canoe comes and he says, no, God's going to save me. And then a helicopter comes and he's like, no, God's going to save me. Well, he ends up dying, goes to heaven, and God says, what happened? I sent you a canoe. I sent you a helicopter, And so, in the 3D world, we have to learn how to cultivate our own trust, to make our own decisions in the moment. I've had wacky spiritual experiences that I laugh over, and when they happen, I say, thank you for reminding me that I need to listen to you too. Right? So I think it's a balance. I think everything is yin and yang. Right? We get to lose ourselves to spirituality and to the masters, but we also have to lose ourselves to ourselves, right? And practice both. Being in the world and of the world.
Definitely. What's your take on the whole AI technology evolution? How does that play in us evolving or devolving? Like, how do you see?
I think that as humans in the 3D world, we're here to build. We're here to build things. We're here to evolve technologically. I appreciate technology. I love technology. I'm not afraid of it. What I'm afraid of is people using it the wrong way, right? Like, we know that you feed AI. So what are we going to feed AI? I have thoughts on, are we feeding AI pornography? Are we feeding AI, fear-based structures? Those are the things that I don't appreciate, because what I know is that the individuals in the world who are mostly operating unconsciously and from a space of fear, they're going to lean into those models of AI, right? And that can become dangerous. But there's so much good happening with AI, right? I see what Deepak Chopra is doing with his AI. And Robert Edward, feeding it all of this beautiful wisdom, scientific wisdom, spiritual wisdom that we don't have easy access to all the time. So being able to utilize those AI systems to remind us of who we are and our capacity as humans, spiritual humans, I think is beautiful. Day to day, AI is helping me, tremendously. I'm a solopreneur. I don't have the luxury right now of having a huge team. And so being able to kind of utilize AI to help me with marketing, with communication, and to just operate more seamlessly as an entrepreneur, has been a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate it. So I'm so open. I'm open to it and excited to see the good that comes out of AI and how it helps us.
Thank you for sharing that. I also see so I always talk about the responsibility of conscious leaders, conscious people in general, to really embrace technology and use it as a leverage to amplify their intent. Because there's a whole spectrum of types of people, conscious, unconscious, anywhere in between, with different types of intents out there. And technology is just amplifying the intent. And if it's unconscious behavior, oftentimes that the results are undesirable. It's just kind of like spilling out into this world, just like this energy that's not intentional, and it hurts a lot of people. And so instead of shying away and like say, oh, we need less technology, embrace it and say, yes, it's here to stay, and it's here for us to use it with the intention to bring positive change in the world. And I think AI is such a beautiful, powerful way that anyone can now use, because all you need to know is how to communicate, how to speak,
Absolutely. And I really want to honor those leaders who are conscious, who really care about the well-being and the engagement of their employees, that they're using AI and bringing AI in to support, the production, the productivity of their employees, helping their employees learn new technologies versus just, firing everybody and just only using technology. And I get it. Listen, this is the world we're in. If you go back in time, we see how it progresses, right? I think technology brings with it new job opportunities, right? So we're going to lose some job opportunities, but through the advancement of technology, we're also going to gain a lot of new opportunities and jobs for humans. So I'm not so afraid of that. But when it's only one or only the other, that's when we're operating in danger zones. We have to try to really find the balance.
Definitely. Yeah. Do you have a way to journal and to capture your thoughts? What's your practice?
Oh my gosh. I am so in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try to teach this to other creatives, it's almost like what they would call a GTD, getting things done method, right? Because we do have to learn how to be productive.
Yeah.
And not lose all of our brilliant thoughts. So I keep a one sheet.
Okay.
Where I dump everything.
Okay. You write it down.
Yeah, I dump everything and then I move it over to, sometimes I have so many ideas, Kirill. Like I am definitely a creative person. I have a lot of the water element in me, that you do too, by the way, in your face for sure. That I know myself. I can get lost in ideas, right? As a strengths coach, I often tell people we want to utilize our strengths as often as possible, because that's where we're going to be in the flow. That's where we're going to be happy and well and productive. But when we overuse our gifts, they become weaknesses, right? So we do, as creatives, need a tool to harness it and just recognize that not every idea, not every thought is meant to be produced, right? So yes, I jot everything down, all of my ideas, and then every day I'll look at it and kind of go, do I want to do something with it today? And I try as much as possible to work on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Right. For my own energy. I also think that changes as you grow older. When I was younger, I could multitask like no tomorrow, and it felt good. Multitasking now in my 50s is not, it doesn't feel good. It drains my energy. And so I'm learning how to, understand how my body's changing, how my energy is changing, and how to maximize, my gifts where I am, in my life right now. So,
Yeah. Speaking of like basically manifestation energy, like your energy to be able to create something out in the world. I have this analogy that came to me one day. Is I saw it, a perfect analogy with a magnifying glass. You go on the sunny day outside and you take a piece of wood and you get the magnifying glass and then when the distance is just right, it starts to burn the piece of wood. It basically creates a physical manifestation of this focused energy on the and if the glass or if the lens is either too close or too far away, if it's not focused enough, nothing is going to happen.
Nothing.
And it's the exact same thing with our energy and attention. If it's not focused enough, no matter how long you're going to hold it, it's not going to produce anything. Or even if it is focused, but not for too long, it's also not going to create anything. So
absolutely. That's a beautiful analogy.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find that the majority of individuals who I coach today,
Mm-hmm.
what they're dealing with is overwhelm and stress because of too much, doing too much. They're not prioritizing truly. There's an inherent fear that if they don't do it all now, it's never going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that they're not going to be successful, that they're not going to get promoted, that they're not going to achieve. And it really has to be the opposite, right? So it's a rewiring of the brain. It's a rewiring of the muscles and the energy to work a new muscle and create a new pattern.
Mm-hmm. What is your vision of a desirable human future?
You know, for me, it's very practical.
Mm-hmm.
I've been as a Gallup Strengths coach and someone who really believes in well-being, and I want everybody to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
That's what I really want. I feel like the engagement numbers in the workplace have been horrible for years and years and years. It'll improve a little bit and then it will get bad again. Like right now, we're nearing 8 out of 10 people in the workplace are disengaged. And that means they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. Mm-hmm. They're showing up just to do the work and get a paycheck.
Yeah.
I was there for a while and I know it doesn't feel good. And I know that it affects every other area of your life. Right. And so my vision for that humanity is a vision where leaders are really thinking about the people first, giving them the tools that they need to be well, to be happy, to come to work using their gifts, leveraging their gifts, taking care of themselves, understanding that they're not humans doing, that they're humans and they also have lives outside and children to take care of and spouses or partners to love. And when I see those disengagement numbers lower and when we know that more people are happy and healthy in the workplace, to me, that's a practical vision for the future.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Sign me up. Yeah. I'm on the same train. Yeah. Yeah. One aspect of the vision that I see is us being this spiritually evolved beings and also at the same time technologically advanced. And technology is the most advanced technology, the way I see it, is the one that's least noticeable. It's the one that's on the background serving us, whatever needs we might have. And it's not obstructive, like intrusive. It's just there as like an intelligence there to support our needs and desires and progress and evolution.
You know, I love that. And I think we could have a beautiful techie conversation about what that could look like, right? But for me right now, that's connecting. That's being outside in nature. I have a special relationship with nature and birds for whatever reason and animals. And the funniest things happen, you know, not only in my dreams, but then they manifest in real life when it comes to nature and animals. And to me, that's the spiritual technology that's in the background, that's quiet, that's giving me signs and symbols, that's helping me to pay attention to a specific thought that I just had. It's almost like a nudge. Yeah, go with it. Or I'll get tingles and I know that that's spirit telling me you're on the right track, you know? And so that quiet technology for me is when I'm in tune, I'm in touch, and I'm paying attention to the spiritual nudges.
Yeah, and it could be actually the same thing. Maybe we can align the tools that we create to be as close to what you just described as possible. You know?
Love that. What if there were like a technology, like maybe our watches need to evolve or our Oura rings, where it recognizes that for me, when I get a tingle, it's a spiritual something nudge. And what if they were able to recognize the thought that it's capturing? Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, really.
And then give me direction. Then AI can tell me, Monique, stop what you're doing. This is what you need to do right now. I would sign up for that. Yeah.
I mean, AI is already helping us with increasing awareness around our thoughts. Like even so, I've been having this practice of recording my thoughts, just journaling, voice journaling when I go on the walk with some binaural beat sounds in my ear, and then whatever thoughts come through, I just verbalize them, and I have this whole system of like cataloging them, breaking them down into ideas.
Beautiful.
And then you have a long-term data of all of the thoughts that go through your mind that gives you a new level of awareness of the evolution of different thoughts, evolution of projects that you've been working on and that we've never had before.
No.
I think that's a great way to like reflect on you, on yourself and your progress.
That is amazing. Wow. I need to evolve my practice.
Yeah, happy to share like
Totally.
the tools that I use. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times again, I get most of my spiritual messages while I'm on a walk or in the shower. You know, again, because these are the moments where you're allowing yourself to go.
Yeah.
You're not paying attention to you, to your ego, to what I need to do, what I think I have to do, who I think I should be.
Yep.
You're just in the moment. And I'm trying to think of a fun example, but the other day I recognized these are things that most people wouldn't recognize if they're just thinking about what they have to do. So I'm on a walk and I see a bunch of birds, and among the birds is a cockatiel. A cockatiel is usually a pet, a home bird. I've never seen them just on their own.
Yeah.
So I paid attention. I'm like, oh my God, that's super cool. So, you know, just noticed it, kept walking. A few days later, I saw it in a completely different place. I'm like, are you following me? Let's think about this. And then the other day I saw it again and I said, you know what? I'm going to start talking to it. And I started talking to it and it started singing to me. And I'm like, what a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
That, you know, I wouldn't have had if I wasn't tuned in to, you know, to myself and allowing, you know, kind of things to just evolve. I have a whole bunch of stories I can share, you know, but that was a fun one.
Beautiful. Yeah. So maybe in closing, share any last ideas, takeaways that you want people to leave with before we close. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and being here. Closing thoughts. I want to say that we are each perfect already as we are. You know, I think that we get bogged down in the 3D world with who we have to be, with competing with others. Especially right now, I'm noticing that because technology is moving so quickly, that a lot of us, especially in my generation, if I don't learn this technology, if I don't move as quickly as, you know, as these people, I'm going to lose. You know, I'm not going to be able to keep, you know, being successful. And I want to say that we have to capture those thoughts and just burn them. You know, that I really believe in cycles of life. When I work with my clients, we always talk about the cycle of life that we're in, honoring it, matching the energy of that cycle so we can be in more flow. So try to really understand that we are perfectly perfect and perfectly imperfect in every moment. And as long as we are connected to our higher self, trusting ourselves and also trusting that life is really supporting us and that spirit is supporting us, that we are going to be led exactly where we need to go and how we need to show up. So just take the time to make sure that you are clear on who you are, that you're excited about your gifts and your purpose, and that you're putting that out there in the world and not competing with the speed of the world, not competing with others, but bringing your own gifts to the world. And you can't go wrong with that.
Thank you. Yeah, this was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you again for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experiences. Thank you, listeners, whoever is still listening to us. Thank you for staying all the way till the end. And I hope to see you on the next one. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.